This is the Developer Kickstart Program webinar. So there's going to be a bunch of things that we go through today, but it's really about you all, one kind of getting you all started with the program and kind of seeing like what it's like, giving some time to ask questions. And then also, on that getting started piece, setting up your VS Code and kind of walking through that, because I know that's been a pretty big struggle that a lot of the people that go through the program kind of get stuck with, and it's one of the first things you've got to do, one of those first hurdles. So we might as well walk through it and get some pre-work out of the way for everybody, even if you're considering joining the program. So let's kind of get rolling in it. Of course, or I guess maybe not, of course, but if you don't know, I am Warren Walters. I am a Salesforce MVP. I've got too many certifications. Some of them need to go away, but that's a little bit fine. So 18 times certified. I've been developing on the Salesforce platform, I want to say 10 years now. And Salesforce just announced like Astro. Did everybody get that email that Astro is like 10 years old now? And I remember when Astro was first, like the character was first, brought out, and that was during a lot of my time learning Salesforce. So I'm gonna guess it's around 10 years now, which is kind of funny. So I talk way too much about Salesforce development. I'm a cat owner. My wife said I should switch that around. Like I'm more of a cat owner than a developer. But I created Cloud Code Academy to really help like build up the developer talent inside of the Salesforce ecosystem. I love doing development. I make YouTube videos and all that stuff, just teaching people about this. And I've done a lot of mentoring around this. We've also got Kayla on the call, who is an awesome instructor, a senior developer. I'll let her talk about herself, but she's one of the awesome instructors and going to be running the next cohort that's coming up soon, which is why probably a lot of you have joined to like ask questions about that. So Kayla, I don't know if you want to intro yourself, talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Kayla. I think I've also been involved in the Salesforce ecosystem for going on around 10 years. I started just as a user when the company I worked for first implemented Salesforce, and then I became an accidental admin, like a lot of people tend to do, and then decided I wanted to be a developer. I'm self-taught, did a lot of Trailhead and kind of hands-on experience to get to where I'm at. And I can definitely tell you that if something like Cloud Code had existed when I was trying to learn, I definitely would have taken advantage of that. It's a really awesome program. I just finished leading cohort 3, and I'm really excited to be leading the cohort that's starting up next month.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. Like, even when I started, Trailhead was just becoming a thing. Like, it just rolled out, and our ecosystem is really starting to mature a lot more now that we have different resources and programs that can help people learn about development. So real quick, I want to make sure everybody knows, especially those that are jumping in right now, definitely feel free to ask questions inside of the chat. We'll also have some sections in closer to the end where it's just free for all, open mic. Let's talk about the program. Let's talk about things that we're struggling with development. So don't be shy. We're here to answer those questions and help everybody out. Really quickly, before we jump into the VS Code and the IDE setup, the real getting started, I wanted to make sure like everybody kind of has an idea of why Cloud Code is like different, or yeah, I mean, it's my program, so I'm going to say better, but why it's different from some of the other platforms, right? We've mentioned Trailhead before, and Trailhead is great if you're trying to learn like one specific thing, right? Oh, LWC, I want to learn how to use this specific this card, or this specific component, right? Trailhead is great for that, but something that we've really been trying to build out in Cloud Code Academy is like this developer community and everybody going on this journey together. So from that standpoint, we have lots of different things like the PD1 prep. We have coding assignments that aren't just cookie cutter, follow these exact steps. You're really going to have to think and work together and work through some of those problems. We've got a comprehensive capstone and alumni kind of process, right? You've got to go through this whole, I'll say an ordeal, right? Especially if you haven't been programming before. It is a long process to be called an alumni, but by the time you're at the end of it, you're really seen as you know your developer skills have grown from that standpoint. And then, of course, like all of the instructors are all senior developers like Kayla, who have been through it all. They come from different backgrounds, like she was mentioning, going from end user to admin to a developer, all self-taught. Like that is an amazing story. And I think a lot of us can see, relate to those different paths that we've gone down. So a lot of different things in here, but there's Cloud Code. I really tried to make it something that's all encompassing. You can take it and walk down these paths. Even though we overload you with information, we give you that kind of path to follow along and build up each of the different areas that you want to learn to become that fully fledged developer, right? So now let's jump into kind of one of the main learning things, or one of the things that kind of stops up a lot of developers from moving forward in just learning Salesforce development, and that is getting your IDE set up. It's one of the first things you want to do, especially once you're moving past the beginning trailheads, which is, we're working in the developer console and we're trying to move to actually using the tools that real developers use. So this is where VS Code and SFDX comes into play. So I'm going to walk through a few different steps that we have so that you all can kind of follow along. Some of you may fall behind, and of course this is being recorded, so it'll be sent out probably tomorrow, whenever I edit it, but it'll be sent out pretty soon, so that if you're not able to follow along exactly, maybe you're waiting on a download or an install or something like that, it's totally fine. I just want to walk through the steps so that you get more familiar with the process. So really quickly, I'm going to switch over to another screen that I've got here and kind of walk through the steps that you want to do when you are installing VS Code. So the first thing I recommend people to do, because this always gets a little hung up, is to install your Java first, right? It is a step that if you've never installed Java before, or you have maybe you don't know if it's in there, and you want to really take advantage of Salesforce development and all the other things that are going on, installing your Java will be super helpful to getting that done. So Salesforce provides a link for the Java and different instructions on how to install it. You'll want to jump into this Java link over here. And there's a few different versions, which can end up being a little confusing, right? This one, the Zulu, and the Oracle, right? There's a bunch of different ones in here. And I'll just paste this link in the chat just in case anybody is trying to, follow along with this. But I prefer the Oracle Java 17. So you'll come down here. And right now, this is a Windows setup. It's very similar if you're doing in Mac. So if you're on the Java 17, we see that there's different JDK, Java Development Kit versions. You'll want to click on Java 17. And then depending on your operating system, right? If you're on Linux, Mac, or Windows, I'm on Windows right now. You'll click the different tabs in here and then do the installer. I prefer the MSI installer because it's just the simplest one. You just click a couple buttons, you next, and that will come through. So if you're on Windows, you'll come into the MSI installer, click this, and then start that install process. If you are on Mac, I pretty much prefer the DMGs. So these, and you'll need to figure out if you are on a like M1 Mac, which are some of the newer operating processors, or if you're on some of the older ones. And I think for Mac, and maybe we can have somebody share their screen if they're on the Mac and going through this in a little bit, but there's like an option at the top left, which says like, I think it's like the little Apple icon and tell me about my computer. And the M1s are the ARM 64. So it'll say like a M processor or something like that over here. So depending on your operating system, go ahead and install your Java. It may ask you to restart, and I would kind of hold off because I'm going to tell you to restart again in another minute. So go ahead, walk through this install process. It should be fairly straightforward. You're signing your life away in the terms and conditions and all of that stuff, but next through it, and you'll have your Java installed. One way to check if your Java is installed correctly is for Windows. For Mac, it's going to be a little bit different, and we can hopefully walk through that. But to go into your local disk, so open up your File Explorer, local disk, programs and files. Should be a Java folder, right? If you're If you've used the Oracle one, there should be a Java folder and you'll see something like this, JDK-17 something. If you've installed the Zulu one, there may be a Zulu folder floating around somewhere down here. Or if you installed the other one, there may be a different folder in here, but it should be in the program files is where you're looking for that. So you've known that it's installed correctly if you set it, if you see this folder here. The other thing is now to install the Salesforce CLI. So this is the tool that we're going to use to connect from our local machine, like our computer at our home, to Salesforce, which is in the cloud, right? We're going to send messages back and forth using the Salesforce CLI. So depending, once again, on your operating system, you'll come to this link and you will install the version depending on that. Right. So for me, it would be the Windows one. I would download this exe, double click it to install it. And it may ask you to add a path, right? When you're seeing that, if there's a little checkbox for adding a path, I recommend doing it because it helps your computer know that you're using the Salesforce CLI when you start using the terminal and different features and processes like that. So from there, this is when I recommend to do the restart. After you've installed Java and after you have installed the Salesforce CLI, go ahead and restart your computer. You don't have to do it now. Like if you're on the Zoom, like you can wait until the end, especially if you've already done some of this stuff in the past and you're trying to get it to work now. So those two items, make sure to install your Java, install your Salesforce CLI, restart your PC, and then hopefully that beginning piece will be set up. And one way to check if your Salesforce CLI is working, you'll want to open up your terminal, right? So this similar process inside of a Mac as well. You want to open up your terminal and you can type in SF-H. And what this little command did, SF-H, is the SF is the Salesforce CLI. That's the different command that you use. The -H is for help. So if you're starting to spit out a bunch of different values inside of here, this basically means that the terminal is working. We can see everything it's installed correctly on your local machine. And this is all we need for this as of right now. Next, we are just going to make sure that we have an org to work with. So if you have developer orgs or maybe Trailhead orgs, go ahead and just make sure that they're ready to go, right? I have a ton in here. But for me, let's say that I'm going to work with this Creative Fox org. I want to launch it and reset the password because we're going to be signing into that org pretty quickly. So if you don't have one, go ahead and create a Playground org by going to your hands-on org. If you have one, launch it. And once you're in there, you want to go to Get Credentials. You'll see your username. You can see my school email if you want to send me an email, I guess. And reset the password if you haven't already, because we're going to be doing that login, right? And I already got my login ready to go. So we need an org to connect to, right? Whenever you're working in Salesforce, everything mostly is in the cloud whenever you're deploying and working with things. So it's super important, or while we're in this learning phase, we need somewhere to write our code. You don't want to be writing it on your actual employer's org or anything like that. So you create either a Trailhead Playground or create a developer org where you can actually deploy your code to. So make sure that is all set up. You've got your password ready to go. And then we're going to start kind of working on another step, which is something that is needed and a lot of developers use, which is having a GitHub account, right? And having a GitHub profile, because this is how we're going to store our code for long-term like use, retrieval, and like version controlling. So seeing the differences that are made. For me, I already have a GitHub account. You can just go to github.com and sign up or sign in, but you need to kind of have that ready because we're going to sign in a little bit as well. So from this side, make sure that you have a GitHub profile and you're signed in from that standpoint. And then I also recommend, just because it's a little bit easier to link once again, your local computer to GitHub, which is like a cloud service of storing your code. So I recommend using GitHub Desktop to get signed in for the first time because it's just going to link everything together very easily for you instead of you needing to like do any crazy terminal commands to get it installed. So what I recommend is downloading GitHub Desktop. It's going to download, you install it, you sign in, and then I'll open it up over here. You open up GitHub Desktop, and I'm already signed in. But the first time you sign in or open up this program, it's going to ask you to sign in. And once you sign in here, it's going to hook up your local machine to GitHub, right? So anytime you use the terminal or anything else, it's going to be connected already for you. There may be some additional installs for you to go through. Like it may say, all right, you're trying to use GitHub, but you don't have Git installed, which are technically they're two separate tools. So you also want to install Git if it asks you to do that. So just make sure as you're going through, you're going to install Git potentially, and then install GitHub Desktop, which will allow you to connect and communicate very easily, right? As soon as you sign into here, it's going to already be hooked up and ready to go. There is a manual way of doing this in the terminal and all of that stuff, but I've found this way super easy, super simple, especially for people just jumping into Salesforce development and kind of working from that standpoint. So I know I'm talking about a lot of like installing and going through things, but this is kind of the steps that you need to do when you're getting started. And as soon as you do this the first time, especially if you're on a fresh computer or anything like that, you don't really have to do a lot of this ever again, right? You're setting this up for one time, and then it should be a little good in the future. Unless your computer crashes or something like that, you need to do reinstalls. But a lot of times you end up forgetting all of the things that you have to install and go through the first time because you do it so long ago, and it might be like 6 months before you even have to deal with this stuff ever again. So finally, I think we're landing on like the final thing that we need, and it's Visual Studio Code. So if you didn't know, Visual Studio Code is an IDE, a place where you can write your code. And it's built by Microsoft, but Salesforce has partnered with Microsoft to use this IDE as their main tool to interact with Salesforce development. So a lot of different types of developers use this platform, this program, to write different sets of code. And what's really great about it is it comes with like a lot of different extensions, and people can write code on top, different code on and modules on top of it to really extend this open source platform, which is really cool. And we'll see some of those today. So I'm actually going to go through the install process of Visual Studio Code. I have, for you all, because I haven't deleted it in a long time, but for you all, I actually deleted my VS Code, and we're going to walk through it together, the install process of that. Deleting the other ones, I didn't want to install all of these on, live with you all, because that leaves room for error. So, of course, go ahead and hit the download. If you haven't already, I've got this download link over here, downloaded it yesterday, and all you need to do, double click to open it up. I'll bring this up over here. Yes, I signed my life away. It's giving you a path where you want your program to be installed. And once again, this is Windows. Mac should have a very similar process, right? Just picking locations. If you want to create a shortcut, yes. And then a desktop icon sounds good. And do you want to, and this is mostly for Windows, when you right click on certain things, do you want to have an option to open it up in VS Code? I personally like this, so I said yes. And then also adding this to the path, which means that you're able to use different VS Code commands inside of your terminal. And I generally recommend this as well if you're going through it. So pretty much checking everything. Yes, they have full control over my computer. And then it's going to start the install process. Hopefully this doesn't take too long as we're going through. All right, so all of this is just installing, going through, and all this is going to come together in the end, once we start writing our code pretty soon. So I'm curious, like, where is everybody at? Is somebody maybe at this part where they're installing VS Code? Is everybody just following along? You can write it in the chat. You can unmute if you want. I'm curious where like everybody's kind of at before we start jumping into the actual hooking up the Salesforce part.
I kind of have it already set up on my computer here, but I always get kind of errors about like Java. So I've never done like the whole Java piece to this. So
Yeah.
the Java downloads. So I'm on a Mac, which is I think convenient. So I don't know if you want me to share my screen or not, or
Yeah, I think we'll get there. So it's good that you have that. We'll definitely have a section where we go over the Java setup and we can
okay.
work through that together, which will be really nice. Perfect timing.
Yeah, I don't know why I get these errors about VS Code.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very familiar with like with the 12. I've used it a little bit here and there over the past few years, but yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing and definitely will be helpful to walk through that. Now that we have our VS Code installed, we installed a bunch of other stuff, periphery stuff. We have our VS Code installed, ready to go. Now we need to start hooking it up with the Salesforce, the Salesforce tools so that we can communicate successfully with Salesforce, right? Because once again, this is an IDE that can be used in many different programming languages. You can use it for Java, Python, whatever. We're also using it for Salesforce development. So to be able to use it for Salesforce development, we're going to come over here to the extensions section and install some extensions that are specific to Salesforce development, right? We're going to hook it up so that these are extensions written by Salesforce themselves so that we can communicate with Salesforce. And these things are going to also are the reason why we installed the Salesforce CLI, because these extensions are going to need that. So once you click the little building blocks over here, I like to just type in Salesforce, and then you'll see a few different extensions kind of pop up around it. The ones that we're looking for is the Salesforce extension pack and the Salesforce extension pack expanded. I generally just install this one all the time, right? You'll click this, the expanded one, and you'll hit install. All it really does is it comes with it's a combination or a package of extensions that are used for Salesforce development, right? So the CLI, Aura components, Lightning Web components, just all tools that we need to do Salesforce development, which is really great for us to have it all in one place. Ideally, all you need is this. As soon as you have it, you're ready to start doing Salesforce development. It's going to install. It might ask you to restart your VS Code, and that's totally fine. The other extension I like to install, which is from a Salesforce evangelist, is called CodeFriar's Pack. So CodeFriar, he used to work at Salesforce. He does a lot of Salesforce development and help for a lot of different people. And this one kind of has everything in it, or everything that he thinks that Salesforce developers should have, right? So this is the Salesforce extension pack. Different themes, some code analyzers, and different tools that are super useful. So if you're looking to kind of just install one thing that has pretty much everything, it's going to be this. If not, if you're trying to be a little bit lighter, then either go for the Salesforce extension pack or the Salesforce extension pack expanded, right? Just having the Salesforce extension pack, the regular one, will be more than enough to get you started. But for me personally, I end up using the CodeFriars pack as well. So just some tertiary things. You don't need them all, but you do at least need the Salesforce extension pack to get started from here. Do that install. We're kind of making sure that your VS Code is set up and ready. So now what you want to do is create a project, or at least see if yours is working, right? So I'm going to actually hold Control-Shift-P, and you can see it says show all commands inside of here. And then if you type in, let's do project, we can see, or I guess we can type in SFDX, right? We can type in SFDX and we can see a bunch of different commands that exist. And all of these commands, if we're seeing these, this means that our Salesforce extension pack is installed correctly and we're ready to start developing on the Salesforce platform. So I'm going to create a project with Manifest. There are different types of projects that you can create, and some of them, you generally, I'll say for you all, if you're just learning, you want to create a project with Manifest. Always want to start out at standard, unless you know for a specific reason why you want to use some of the other ones. Give your project a name. Give your project a folder. Right, so I'm just in one of these folders and I'm going to create my project. And we can see down over here, it was kind of working, it was kind of thinking, getting things set up. Really great question coming through the chat while all of this is loading up, and you can see down at the bottom, some things are loading depending on your computer and how fast things happen. You'll see like lots of things loading down here and a few things changing around. A great question is that came through the chat is why are we using it with manifest or not with manifest? Basically, the manifest says these are the specific things that I want to come through with my project, right? And it opens up this little package.xml. Some of you may know about the package.xml if you've worked in Salesforce for a little bit, but this basically defines all of the different metadata, all the things that we want to take from our org and put into our local computer. So that's why we want to use with manifest. If we use the other way, just a regular project, you'll have to use some different commands to pull information from the Salesforce org into our local machine. It's not wrong, it's just a different way of doing it. And I think generally the manifest is a little bit easier. So next up, while we're here, right, we've successfully created a project. Now we want to connect to an org, because just because we've created this like empty project with a bunch of different empty folders, doesn't mean that we're actually hooked up to any org and we're able to get any information. So the way that I like to do this is down here at the bottom, where we see right now it says change default org for me, but for you it might say authorize org or sign in or something like that, and it doesn't have this little plug icon in here. So what you want to do is click on that, and then you can see I have a ton of orgs already authorized, but you'll want to authorize an org. Or, depending on if you know what you want to actually create, you might want to select some of these different options in here. But generally, if you're setting up a Trailhead org, you'll want to click that first option for authorize. For Trailhead orgs, they are technically a production org, so you can just do default project. That'll be fine. And then you want to give it a name, right? So by default, it's going to be this VS Code org. But for me, since I have so much stuff, it's really good to be organized. So I will kind of, give these a more meaningful name that I'll know which org that I'm using. So for me, it's a Trailhead org. It's Mindful Moose. So I'll enter that in there. And as soon as I do that, it's going to open up my browser so that I can sign in. Let's see. Okay. Let's see me sign in. Oh, all right. Let's see me not sign in. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. Okay. I'm signing in. If you do sign in, it may prompt you to say like, hey, go ahead. Do you agree to use SFDX in this org? You want to hit authorize, and then we can see authorize successful. You can go back onto the other screen. All right, so now I'm jumping on my VS Code. Down here, it's showing me that it's the Trailhead org Mindful Moose. And another way to know that we're hooked up to the correct org is if you hit this open org little browser looking button down here. You can click on that, and then it should pop your screen and jump you directly into the org, which is really cool. And you can validate that you're in the right org, which is nice. From here, it seems like our VS Code is hooked up to the org successfully. So what I also like to do is to jump into like a scripts folder and just start playing around with some of the code. So I jumped in the scripts, Apex, hello.apex, and this script already exists inside of there, right? The hello world script. And we should be able to hit this execute button at the top here. Now, if you're not seeing this execute button over here, and as soon as I hit it, we can see like some of my code ran and I'm getting a debug and all of this stuff. And I guess I can enter my name, right? Enter my name and I can hit execute. I'll see that value again here. If you're not seeing this execute or debug button when you're in your scripts folder or your scripts folder in the Hello Apex file, this means that your Java is not set up correctly. So I'm going to call on you soon, Nick, as we go through it, right? So if you're not seeing these, then we need to go ahead and set up our Java, basically letting our VS Code know where our Java is so that it can communicate successfully, because this is like basically Java commands that run to execute these. So what we want to do is go to File, Preferences, Settings, close this down. And what I like to type in is either Salesforce, and there's going to be a ton of Salesforce settings in here, some that we do care about and some that we don't, but there's going to be a Java home setting. This is the one that we particularly care about for making sure that our Java is working. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we need to set up our path so that our VS Code knows where our Java is. This is going to be different for every computer, which is kind of okay, but generally for Windows, it's in this sort of path, right? For Linux here, and then for Mac, it's going to be over here. So real quick, I'll show you on Windows, right? We looked at it before. What I like to do, go to my C, Programs and Files, Java, JDK, and this is saying that for Windows, we need JDK 17. So the full folder, basically this entire folder, I can copy this path, and we can already see it kind of pasted in here, but just paste that in here. I think we don't need to save anything, but you can, write or do like a Control S to save, and then close this out. Once we've done that, we need to close out our VS Code and open it back up. It should open back up into the same file and folder. I guess I'll just run through that really quickly. So close that down, open back up our VS Code. And if everything is working correctly, we won't see any like errors that pop up on the bottom right that says like Java is missing or Java problems once our extensions load, right? We can see all of our extensions loading at the bottom. Depending on your computer, once again, it may take a little bit for the extensions to load. So really quickly, Nick, I know you were just talking about this, and I'll bring back up my screen. I don't know if you want to share your screen, but for Mac, it's a little bit different because it's in a different path. Type in Salesforce again. It's in a different location, but the overall process of it should be the same, right? So we should be able to find that folder and paste this value in. You have to go all the way to the contents home and paste that in, and then restart your VS Code, and that should allow your Java to work.
Okay, do you want to walk me through that? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, share, and let's walk through it.
Uh, can you see my screen?
We can.
So I'm getting a few errors.
Love it. Yeah, and most of these, I already see the java.com error that's going on down there. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit File.
Up here?
Yep.
Okay.
And there should be, actually, you might need to hit Code
Okay.
at the next one to the left.
Okay.
Settings. Settings again. Type in Salesforce. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Scroll up a little bit. I feel like I just saw it. Or okay, right there. So that Java home setting. So now what I want you to do is open up your like file explorer, and let's see if we can find where it is.
I think I still need to download this actually. Is this what it is right here? This right
The
here?
Java. Yeah. So definitely need to download.
Gotcha.
Do
you
you
know
need
which one to use?
Go ahead, hit the little Apple icon to the top left about this Mac and M1. So for the M1s, I'm fairly certain it's the ARM64, and I like the DMG installer because it's just like, it's similar to a Windows installer where you click it a couple times and it goes through.
Okay.
So let's see that internet speed. Let's see if we can walk through it right now. Double click. Yes, we sign our life away. It's okay. You can have all of our information, Java. We give up at this point. Yep, move it to the trash. We don't need the installer anymore. So we should be installed with our Java. Now we want to make sure that that path is correct because it probably lives in that libraries, Java, blah, blah, blah. But let's open up the files, the like just your regular Explorer. And let me actually see, I've got a Mac over here. If I can remember how to, okay. So click on maybe any of these files, and then I want you to do like command up in the arrow key, command up arrow. Maybe control up arrow.
Okay.
No. So I need to send you to a location that you can't see right now. Because if you look at that path that it shows you, it's like /library /XYZ kind of thing. And as we're looking at it, it's not going to be in your downloads. It's like it's a file directory above where we actually are right now. Not again.
Not sure. I can try to stop sharing and look for that if you need me to.
I think if you hold down the Option key, you might be able to get to the library from there when you're in the Finder.
That rate.
I see those. We still need to go a little bit higher. So like 4.7. Do that again. You see where it says 42739? Click on that.
Okay.
We still need to go one higher. Do that Option key again. Oh, yeah, we're getting there. Go to Macintosh. Yep, HD. Libraries is where we need to go. Thanks, Kayla. That was perfect. Java. Java Virtual Machine. JDK 17. Contents. Home. And I think we can just click on home.
Just click on home.
Yeah, just click on it. Maybe right click it. And there should be, let's see if there's like an option to copy path or anything like that. No, let's copy the whole folders. Hit that Option key again where it was showing where we were. And can you right click that home down there? To the right. Yep. Right click that. Copy home as path name. So you want to say, like, I've done this so long ago, you get it set up and you don't have to deal with it ever again. Now, so that you should have what you need copied. Go back into your VS Code, paste that in. And that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. And you can see how it like almost matches. It falls apart where, it says open JDK-11. We needed JDK-17. So that should be good. You should be ready to just close this out and then restart your VS Code. Once it loads back up, it should be all set.
So just exit out?
Yep.
Okay.
You'll want to open back up your Salesforce folder or your Salesforce project.
Oops.
Give your extensions a minute. And we haven't had those other errors pop up yet. Let's press on for now while these are loading, and then we'll come back to it when we open up for questions.
Sounds good.
Awesome. And yeah, if it works out, let me know in the chat as we're going through.
Thank you.
Cool. So really quickly, kind of just rounding things out, we're getting pretty close to like finishing things up, right? That Java setup is one of the final things that you want to do, right? Just reiterating, going into file, or I guess in Macs, it's that little code icon settings. Let's do Salesforce. And then wherever yours actually is, you're entering in that path for it. The last thing that I personally like to do is have a save feature enabled. It is called deploy on save. Where is it? Here it is. So I like to have this basically when I do Control S, it automatically deploys my code. But if you're seeing this little execute icon at the top of the debugs in gray, that means you're set up correctly and you're able to, execute this code, and it's running just like Apex Anonymous against your code. The final thing that we kind of want to do is actually make sure that we can deploy code and bring code down from our Salesforce org. So I'm going to press Control-Shift-P again, create Apex class, my test. Apex, or let's actually call it live SFDX, selecting the folder that we want to do, and then it's creating this class for us. And this is, just like if we were using the developer console and creating that stuff, we can even right click and deploy. And now we're able to actually create code and send it from our local machine, which is where this file lives. When we right click and do this deployment, we're sending it over into our Salesforce org. And then finally, just to make sure that we're all hooked up successfully, you can open up this org browser, and this gives you access to all of the metadata inside of your org, and you can easily pull the different code that exists inside of your org from here, right? So this is a class that I already have. You can hit this little icon, and it's going to bring it from your Salesforce org into your local computer. And from there, we're able to, see all of that code that was written, right? So if you've already worked on Trailhead modules and things like that, you're able to pull those values into your actual Salesforce org. So finally, kind of rounding things out, you should see some GitHub information over in here when you click the source control icon. This one is really cool. And, if you start working with either in the Cloud Code program, we teach you how to use GitHub and use it in your different Salesforce orgs. But if you're using it internally, maybe you're working at a company already that has it, you can either create a repo or pull down information from GitHub already. So really quickly, I want to walk through, like if you already have an existing repository, what it's like to bring all of that Salesforce in, or all that information that lives in GitHub into your local computer. So I'm actually going to close down this folder. And then if I open this up, we see it gives me an option to clone a repository. So I'm going to clone one of my most favorite repositories that exists. This is the Apex Recipes repository. It's built by the Salesforce team, and it is basically a huge just amalgamation of different code or examples of code created by the Salesforce evangelist team and different Salesforce people, right? So there's examples on how to do integrations, how to write asynchronous Apex, and a lot of different things exist in this repo. If you're learning development and you're curious how somebody from Salesforce would develop something, this would be a repo that I would recommend you taking a look at. So since we set up our GitHub desktop, which then linked all of our code, our local machine together. Now, if we jump into this repository, we can click on this little code icon. And I like to use the HTTPS. So just copying this over here, clicking on this, and then copying the URL that it gives you. We can come over here and click clone repository and paste that URL in. So once we press enter, it's going to need a location again because we're creating basically a whole new project. I'm going to select that destination. And what it's doing is reaching out to GitHub and pulling down all of that code that exists inside of that repository, right? So we're able to bring all of that code over. And now I can explore all of that code, not just in GitHub, but in my own local environment. And I can even deploy those to the Salesforce orgs of my choosing, right? So once all my extensions load, I can click over here and select that Mindful Moose Trailhead org that I've been working with. And now whenever I deploy or do any changes with this code, it's going to deploy into that Mindful Moose Trailhead org that I've been working on, and I'm not like messing anything up. So this is a great one to have, a great one to look at as you're learning different things inside of Salesforce development. Really cool repo to work with. And then also this will make sure or let you know that your GitHub is actually working correctly because we're able to pull down that information there. So we've gone over a lot of stuff. I want to leave some room to kind of talk about and have a little chat at the end, but Once again, like if you're walking through all this stuff, everybody that's on here will get the recording for it. So it's okay if you didn't lock in everything as we were going through. Some few last minute things I want to talk a little bit more about Cloud Code before we open up to questions, just really highlighting some of our members that have found success as they've gone through the program. So you may see yourself in some of these people, right? We've got career transitioners, people who have had no experience in Salesforce, jumping in and being successful, completing the program. Some people that kind of joined just to get PD1 and kind of learn those basics and be able to communicate better with all the different people on their teams, consultants, lots of different people just looking for a different developer role and trying to learn best practices. So just quickly running through these folks, we've got Niha. She transitioned from like a huge career break into Salesforce, knew nothing about Salesforce, signed up and is totally crushing it. She is definitely an amazing story. And like all these people are open to work to get like talk with you and work with them if you're curious, like on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. So she was super great. She's able to grab like a contract role working part-time in Salesforce development, which is really cool. Stephen recently got put on some more complex projects, so actual development projects in his role. He hasn't even finished a program, and just the skills that he's added has been really great for him to be able to take on more complex projects, right? So super excited for him to see where he goes, especially as he progresses through the program. If you haven't seen Tom, he's been really like talking a lot. So I guess he's trying to follow in my footsteps, right? Talking a lot on LinkedIn and things like that about Salesforce and different avenues that he's been taking down. He's really starting to find his niche in Lightning Web Components, which is really cool. But he joined the program, and about halfway through, he already had a new job just from some of the interviewing tips and some of the practice that we've been doing. He got a new Salesforce developer role and really started implementing some of those best practices that we've been working on. And then Hillary, also somebody who has been really blowing up in the last couple of months. She was a Salesforce admin, or I guess is a Salesforce admin, but really joined the program to demystify code and start to understand how it all works behind the scenes. Right now she's leading a team and she's able to communicate more effectively with everybody on her team, not just developers but different technical people, because she has gone through this program and started to learn the different avenues that are out there. So it's been really great to see all of their progress as we've gone through the program. But if anybody has any questions, comments about the overall program and kind of what we do, right? We've just kind of seen a taste, which is the IDE setup, but there's so much more that goes into Salesforce development as we're walking through it, right? And it's really a journey. That's why it takes about 4 months to get through all of the content. But it's super fun, and for me, I enjoy it. I live and breathe this stuff every day. So I'm excited to share it with everybody as they're walking through their steps. So I'll open it up. Feel free to unmute or just type in the chat. If you have any specific questions, thoughts, they can kind of be on anything. And then we can kind of go from there.
Hey, I've been very excited to consider this more deeply, so thank you for having this session. I'm curious because I sometimes see that it's self-paced, sometimes I see it's one-on-one. Like, what does like a typical week once I sign up look like, I guess, is my question. Are these live classes as well as self-paced,
Yeah.
like learn it yourself lessons?
Great question. So the core of the program is live, right? We have live sessions twice a week. One session is focused on learning a development skill. So this could be a week on variables and assignments. And then by the end, you're doing integrations and all of these crazy things, right? So there's one live session a week focused on that. And then another live session that's generally for PD1 study, right? We're focusing on, okay, what do we need to know to pass the exam and to be like well-rounded developers? So those sessions are live. The times are already set. You can see the time set for the May cohort that's coming up. And they're generally, those 2 days a week, going for about 4 months. That being said, though, we do record all of the sessions, and we basically have just like a huge library of cohort recordings that are being generated, so that if you want to go through the program self-paced or at your own speed, then you totally have that option. We're not limiting you down, but the live sessions do continue to go on. There are homeworks and assignments for each week that build upon each other, and you can do them week by week, or you can submit them whenever you're ready, as long as you're, going through the program, right? So if you're, 4 weeks in and you're working on assignment 2, that's totally fine. As soon as you submit it, we'll review it at that time. So there's not really that much pressure, especially if you're busy, you've got things going on, to where, you have to hit, you have to make every live session, all of those things. Everything is recorded because we understand people have lives, things are going on, work happens, life happens, to where we leave that option open for all of our learners.
Okay, thank you. Because I have some background already, so I think that sort of answers my question of if I want to go a little bit ahead of what's in that week, I can go back to previous recordings and kind of see what I need, even because I currently have a junior developer role, but I'm still very not confident in my developer skills. So I want to bolster them a bit more. So I think I'm able to picture how it all would work together. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, we do have people joining with dev backgrounds already, and they're just looking for those best practices, those insights from people like Kayla and myself who have been through it, and we know, okay, we don't want to write this trigger this way. This is what you would see in the real world, kind of thing. This is how you should structure these things, right? And we've had members like Tom and a few others, maybe like Neil. I don't know I guess we know who Neil is, who have gone through the program because everything's available on day one. Like, you can blaze through it and take your capstone project in, a month or two. It would be very rapid, but that's fine depending on where you are at, right? If you understand that stuff, then it's totally fine to blaze through it. But we've kind of paced it out to where there's a lot of content in the 16 weeks as you're going through, even for somebody who has a little bit of development experience, and it keeps you very engaged in the stuff that we're doing. How much time does it typically take for a non-developer to learn from scratch to being hands-on proficient? How much time do you have? This is a really great question. If you have like the 20 hours a week that we kind of recommend for you to spend in the program week by week, you're attending the live sessions, you're doing like the one-on-one sessions that we have, like you can sign up for one-on-ones with different team members and things like that. You're attending the office hours, which we're about to have an office hour in like 3 minutes. So if you're attending all of those and really consuming all of the content, and we've seen people go from the 16 weeks, go through the entire program, right? And be very successful with that. That being said, like, if you need to take your time and you're going through it, then that's totally fine. But the proficiency stage, if you're spending that, 15 to 20 hours a week, by the end of the 4 months of coding with us, you'll be pretty proficient.
I have a quick question, y'all. When you say coding fundamentals, are you guys teaching like programming like fundamentals as well, or are you guys jumping straight into Apex and LWC?
So we learn the fundamentals through Apex, right? And fundamentals for me are, okay, let's create a variable, let's do assignments, let's or do arithmetic operations. That's probably the first month of, we go kind of fast. That's probably the first 3 weeks of that. And then we really start jumping into, okay, now that we've learned those things, how can we apply this to Apex, right? How do we use triggers to then do arithmetic operations? How do we do asynchronous like batch calls and other types of things like that through Apex, right? So it's not like we're learning in Java or any other language. We're starting with Apex through those fundamentals and then progressing on. Speaking on the LWC front, we do kind of towards the end touch on LWC, but this is focused mainly on Apex because you'll need a lot of those concepts to write good Lightning Web Components. We've got the email on here if anybody needs me at admin@cloudcodeacademy.com. Just as an overall, right, signing up for the program or not, I really believe that anybody can learn development and all of this stuff. So Whether you're signing up now or for the next cohort, hopefully if we have one more in the future, just stick with it. There's lots of really great resources out there. And from what I've seen, it's really helped everybody that has stuck with it and learned, how to code and all of this stuff. It's really helped progress their careers in many different ways. Cool. That's where I'm going to wrap it up, everybody. Please feel free to reach out to me or Kayla, or anybody that has gone through the program. They'll tell you the good, bad, and the ugly, and that's okay. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And hopefully I'll be talking with you soon. You'll probably see my LinkedIn stuff all the time because, I can't stop talking about it. So adios.
Bye, everybody.